Hey everybody, it's Sean Halpin. I'm here with Josh Katzowitz. Welcome to the Friday edition of Pickwatch Live for Wildcard Weekend. Josh, what is your favorite, before we get into the details about every game, what's the game you're most looking forward to?
I think it might be Chargers at Ravens.
Okay. Is it the rematch thing? Is it what do you want to see here?
It's a little bit of the rematch thing. It's a lot of it have to do with Phillip Rivers and whether he can finally get that title. I've also liked Baltimore. I liked the fact that they've got to the playoffs when they were seemingly out of it for most of the season. I like the job that John Harbaugh's done. It's just such a kind of a little bit of a weird vibe in that organization this year with regards to him. And I like that he's kind of proven himself to be, one of the best coaches in the league without his starting quarterback for the last, decade or whatever, having to kind of bring along a new offense, kind of just the adaptability of that organization, that franchise. I think I really enjoyed watching this year. So those two teams combined, I think. I mean, I don't think these are the best teams in the league, but they have the ability to kind of put together a really good game here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that part of it. It's funny, mid-season, Harbaugh was, I don't know about dead man walking, but he wasn't that far away.
Yeah.
And the way they've, completely changed their identity, going from other teams that have changed and brought in a backup quarterback, they haven't had to make such a dramatic change to the way they play. Yeah. And they did. And it's working. I mean, it's been fun to watch. I'll say that. They play. They're sort of like the opposite of all the high-powered offenses. Not that they're a high-powered offense, but they're succeeding. So yeah, I look forward to seeing that one too. All right, folks. So just to let you know what we're up to this weekend, the picks are coming in at NFLPickwatch.com. If you're not watching this live, you might be watching on YouTube. If you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, please do so. The picks will be coming in over the course of the day on Friday. We will give you right now what we, on this show, what we have so far. I will be back. I'll do a Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, noon Eastern, to sort of catch you up on, hey, here's the way the lines have moved. Here's how the expert picks have come in. Stuff like, any injuries, inactives, that kind of thing. I'll be on Facebook Live for probably 10 minutes on each day. So make sure to check that out. Otherwise, make your picks if you haven't already, NFLPickwatch.com. Just to recap, Ryan, as far as against the spread, Josh beat me. Ryan was 7th overall in the standings. Josh is tied for 16th. Nice effort. Came on really strong late in the season. I tied for 24th. That 13-2 week, man, you just crushed me. And we're going to talk today. One of us might have a good weekend. One of us might not. And we'll get into why that might be the case in a minute. Also, by the way, if you're listening to this on audio, or if you want to listen to it on audio, you can get the podcast on Spotify, or you can go to Podbean and subscribe there, and wherever you listen, it'll let you know where you can check it out. Okay, let's get to the Wildcard Weekend games. We're not going to do as long a show as usual. It's not going to be an hour. It's probably going to be 10 minutes a game or something like that. First, Colts-Texans. As of right now, and I did this last night, so I'm going to check the updated lines as of this morning. We have Texans favored by 1.5. Over-under is 48.5. To refresh your memories, these teams played twice. The Texans lost their first 3 games of the season. They came back with a win against the Colts to rebound at Indy, 37-34. In overtime, the Colts were trailing 27-10, came back, tied it, but the Texans won. In week 13, so now after the Texans started 0-3, they won 9 in a row. Then they hosted the Colts, and the Colts won. The Colts beat them 24-21. The common thread in these games for me, other than them being really close, the one stat that jumped out, and I want to ask what you think of this, Josh. In the 2 games, the Indy running backs ran 31 times for 64 yards. Like they literally, and the Colts, they're not a good running team generally. They have some good games. Mac has some good games. They run better with Ryan Kelly in the lineup, and he's going to be back this week. But the Colts they ran less than almost anybody in the league. Does it matter that they had trouble running against the Texans, who just generally have a good run defense?
Yeah, I mean, it matters a little bit. You'd like to be kind of as multidimensional as you can get. You know, it doesn't really seem to matter that much, though. I mean, you look at what have they won? What, 9 out of 10? I think
Yep.
something like that. So you look at these box scores, and you see kind of how they've rushed. And early on in that stretch, they rushed, against the Bills, they rushed for 220 yards. And next week against the Ravens, they rushed for 222. And since then, it's kind of fallen off a cliff. I mean, they're rushing for 81 yards against Jacksonville, 50 yards against Texans in week 14, 49 yards just 2 weeks ago against the Giants, and they still win. You know, they only lost. They lost to Jacksonville, rushing for 41 yards, but that offense just was terrible that weekend. They scored 0 points against the Jags. So, in the past, 10, 11 weeks, it hasn't really mattered that much. They haven't been able to establish a running game. And they do have some games where they did establish it, and, that was fine. But either way, it seems like it's okay. I think the way Andrew Luck's played this year has been really, really impressive. One of the more impressive stories of the league this year, just where he came from. So I'm kind of less worried about the running game than I normally would be. I'd rather like to see a team really be multidimensional and have that balance. But in Indianapolis' case, it hasn't really seemed to matter, for the last 10 or 11 weeks.
All right. One other Indy note here. T.Y. Hilton, he's expected to play. He hasn't been practicing. He's been banged up for a few weeks. And Frank Reich actually said this week, if this was the middle of the season, we'd be sitting him down. And the guy, I mean, he's been playing still really well. Like, basically, he doesn't practice during the week, and he comes out on the weekend. He just plays great. I mean, it's pretty strong effort by T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, he's been really good this year. Over 1,200 receiving yards. The percentage of passes to him, you'd like it to be a little higher. I think he only catches 63% of the passes thrown his way. He's kind of there. His career has been known for his drops. So yeah, you'd obviously like him to be healthy. But Luck has other weapons. I mean, he's got Eric Ebron, who's really, really come on strong this year. He's kind of one of the better, I guess, maybe the best comeback story for a tight end this year. Been really strong. I mean, they have their targets. Obviously, like you said, they can see Hilton at full strength, but I think he can still be effective even if he's not 100% healthy. And like I said, Luck has their targets. So I don't see that as a game breaker either way.
All right, and just for some context on Hilton, he is. I mean, the ankle's been bugging him for a little while. The last 8 weeks, 7 games of the season, he had 4 games of over 100 yards. And, I mean, he didn't do much against Tennessee last week, but they didn't need him because they were up big. But, I mean, again, really just, kind of gutting it out there. And you really like to see that. Otherwise, in this game, I mean, some context. So the Texans have been 6-2 at home. Indy's 4-4 on the road, 5-3 against the spread. By the way, the Texans are 4-4 against the spread at home. We talked about Indy not running a lot. The Texans do like to run a lot. They're 4th in the league in rushing attempts. They try basically. As their streak, that 9-game winning streak, started, you could tell that they were trying to. Basically, they were taking the air out of the ball. They were trying to. I don't know about ground and pound, but close to it. As they get into a rhythm, a couple of games where they had to have high scoring games. Then you see a stretch of games. I'm starting looking at week 6 on attempts for Deshaun Watson: 25, 24, 20, 24, 24, 24. So they spent a lot of time in the middle of the season there. And, there was games where, they won some of them handily, but, they tried to run a lot and not throw a ton. And then later in the season, things picked up a little bit. I mean, that Philly game was a shootout against the Jaguars this week. That wasn't a shootout, but Watson threw 35 times. They've seemed like they're throwing the ball a little more later in the season, and the games haven't all been blowouts to cause that. Shootouts to cause that necessarily. And Watson's kind of, I mean, in my opinion, he's kind of stepped up. He's meeting the challenge and playing pretty well lately. Even though they've lost a couple of games down the stretch, he seems to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, this, because he's been injured in the past, there's always kind of that question mark surrounding him, and he's performed well this year. Over 4,000 yards passing. 26 touchdowns against 9 picks. So really pretty strong touchdown to interception ratio. And he, like you said, he's got that threat on the ground, over 550 rushing yards this year. And, the running game isn't, Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue certainly have been players who are known as game breakers. I mean, I think Lamar Miller's career has kind of been a little bit disappointing overall. Like, you kind of expect more out of him, but he's, they've been solid. But I do like that Deshaun Watson has kind of been able to show his talents as a passer. What I don't like from Houston and on their offense is the fact that they can't protect him.
Right.
They lead the league in sacks given up. I think there's 62 sacks this year. The Texans have allowed, which is obviously not a good thing, especially when you have a mobile quarterback like Watson. That's a problem. You would think that they're gonna have to figure that stuff out heading into the playoffs, how they can protect their quarterback, their number one asset.
Yeah, he's had. I mean, that's a problem. And the Colts, we have this. I don't know about you. I feel like the general public's impression of the Colts is that this team, that back to when Peyton Manning was playing, this team who's, they were all offense. And the Colts defense has actually been pretty good this year. They've done a good job rebuilding that team this year. And I mean, the defense is not great, but it's kind of middle of the pack and not something you can overlook in this situation, especially like you said, with that bad Texans line. I mean, they just struggle. So I don't know. Are you looking at the actual pick? Are you surprised? And we're going to talk about the picks in a minute. I'll just say no. I'm going to take the Texans. You're going to take the Colts. Are you surprised that basically what this spread says, if you use the rule of thumb that, the home team gets 3 points, this is saying that on a neutral field, the Colts will be favored by a little bit. Like, I get that this is kind of a close game. I'm a little surprised that at the spread. I figured the spread would be maybe a couple more points. And the way the picks are coming in, people love the Colts. Lots of people love the Colts so far.
I think a lot of it does have to do with if you're kind of peaking toward the end of the year, which the Colts clearly are. I mean, they started 1-5, and since then have been almost perfect all year long. So I think that, with Andrew Luck, the way he's played, and just with the way the Colts have played the last couple months, they just seem to be peaking at the right time, which, as we know, going to the playoffs, if you're peaking at the right time, you can be a 9-7 team and win the Super Bowl. Not the Colts
right.
Over 10-6, but remember the Giants did that a couple of times when they were 9-7, barely getting to the playoffs, and they won the Super Bowl. They just peaked at the right time. The Texans, meanwhile, have lost 2 of their last 5, which isn't terrible, especially after that long winning streak. But you kind of don't get the impression that they're peaking at this very moment. So I think that perception probably plays into it.
Okay. And the other person we just need to mention because of how great he is DeAndre Hopkins. The Texans, they traded for Demaryius Thomas midseason, then they lost him but to injury. They think they're going to get Kiki QT back, who had a few nice games in the middle of the season. I mean, it'll help their receiving core, but basically he's a one-man receiving core, and it kind of doesn't matter that he's the only guy. He in the last 3 games, by the way, Hopkins, he's caught 33 passes for 421 yards. I mean, the guy's he's just awesome. They throw to him all the time. Their passing game is like they know they're throwing to Hopkins and whatever. The team seemed almost powerless to stop him. He's that good. He catches everything. He runs great. He became such a better receiver than people thought he was going to be. Like, you thought he was going to be good when they drafted him. He's a monster. He's so good.
Let me mention one other thing too that I was researching. Houston has the reputation for being good defensively, but their pass defense is not very good.
Right.
The fifth worst in the league, and in 3 of their past 5 games, the opposing quarterback has thrown for at least 380 yards, and that includes Luck in one of those games, in Mayfield and Foles. And 2 of those games were losses. So, if you're looking for the question of whether or not Luck is going to continue to have these great games, the statistics say that he probably will, because the Texans' pass defense, especially lately, has been pretty bad.
Right. All right. One other thing to note about this game, we talked about the running games, and The Colts actually, I mean, we talked about Houston's good run defense. The Colts actually, they've only allowed 3.9 yards a carry, which is sixth in the league. So they've been pretty good. I mean, it seems like I talked about the Texans wanting to take the air out of the ball a little bit in a lot of games when they went on their winning streak. In the 2 games against the Colts, Watson threw 80 passes. So this game's going to be, you would think this game's going to go through the air a bit more than, than these teams' normal games, at least than the Texans' normal games might be. I wonder how that affects the over-under. I was picking under. It's 48.5. But if these teams are going to throw a bunch, I don't know. I mean, they're going to try to run. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah. I think if Deshaun Watson is having to throw 40 passes in a game, it's not great for Houston. It's not a good situation.
All right. So we're going against each other here. You got the Colts. I got the Texans right now on NFLPickwatch.com. Like I said, all the picks are not in. We probably got more than half still coming today. So keep checking the site for picks. But it looks like right now, experts 71% Colts. And fans are 54% Colts. So the experts are, I don't want to say trendy because that diminishes it. It's a word that makes it sound like, oh, people don't know what they're doing. It's trendy. But the Colts are a trendy pick. Like the Colts are, even though they're a very slight underdog, they're pretty popular. They seem like the most popular underdog pick so far.
Wait, what was the line? As you said, it was +1.
I see plus. This morning I see 1.5.
I had it at Colts -2. That's what I saw that.
Colts -2? Colts +2.
Maybe I screwed up. I thought it was let me see. No, I think on NFL Pickwatch, I have it at -1.
You got Colts +1 right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Colts +1. That's weird.
Yeah.
Maybe I just messed up.
This morning
Well,
back to
even if it was Colts minus, I in my column I wrote Colts -2. Maybe that was my mistake, but either way, if it was -2, I'd still be picking the Colts. So that's how confident I am in that.
All right, next up, Seahawks Cowboys. The morning line, like I said, we're talking a little before 8 o'clock Eastern on Friday. Right now, it is Cowboys favored by 1.5. Over under is 43. These teams played in week 3. The Seahawks had opened with 2 losses on the road. Then they come home. They won 24-13 against the Cowboys. They sacked Dak 5 times. They forced 3 turnovers. 2 of them were Dak interceptions. They ran the ball a lot. I don't know if I'd say particularly effectively. Chris Carson, 32 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. So they just ran and ran and ran. And the Cowboy defense is not a pushover against the run. Ezekiel Elliott had a nice game, 16 carries, 127 yards. So that's wrapping that up. I want to get through some injuries first. Seahawks, their guard, J.R. Sweezy, questionable. We're not sure if he's going to play yet. Shaquille Griffin got hurt last week, but he's expected to play. Their corner, who hasn't been that great anyway. They've got to change at safety. Delano Hill's going to be out with a hip injury, but they're getting back Cedric Thompson, so that's probably a wash. Cowboys, the guard, Xavier Su'a-Filo is doubtful, so that matters, but they're going to get Zach Martin back. So that's, hugely helpful, obviously. David Irving's still out there and waiting for him for a while, not going to play. So interesting thing in this game, these teams look pretty evenly matched, I think. You look at them and you say, these are both pretty solid teams. They've been playing kind of well. And, the almost toss-up spread looks right. But the Cowboys have been so good at home. And the Seahawks on the road have been, they're kind of all right. Even the games they won, they're not all that great. Does the Cowboys' home performance, how much does that affect how you look at this game?
It affects a lot. I wrote in my column this week that if this was played on a neutral field or even if it was played in Seattle, I'd have no problems picking Seattle immediately. I think the only thing that kind of gave me pause this week was the fact that the Cowboys are playing at home and they've been good there. Look at their schedule right now. How many have they lost at home? 2 this year?
The Cowboys won.
No, I'm saying overall the Cowboys at home.
They've lost one. They've lost one game at home.
Oh, they lost one. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. They lost the Titans. So yeah, and then beating the Saints at home, which I think a lot, obviously that surprised a whole lot of people. They beat the Eagles at home the next week after that. They beat the Bucs at home. So they haven't played a very, very tough schedule at home, except for the Saints and the Eagles. The Seahawks are probably the second toughest team to come to Dallas. So maybe that there's some solace there. Like Cowboys kind of beat up on some bad teams at home. But, yeah, I'm still going with the Seahawks. But it was a little more difficult for me to pick them because I know how good Dallas is on the at home. And I know that Seattle, in this era, as good as they are at home, struggle a little bit more on the road. That made me – it briefly gave me pause, but not too much.
Okay. I'm going the other way again. I do think that one interesting thing here is that the Cowboys. I mean, the Seahawks love to run. The Seahawks run. I mean, as much as anybody in the league, more than anybody. They're second in rush attempts behind the Ravens, but the Ravens are a weird one because the quarterback runs all the time. He runs 15 times a game. They lead the league in rushing yards. 160 rushing yards a game, 4.8 carry. But the Cowboys are sturdy. The Cowboys are third in the league in rushing yards allowed per carry. I mean, this is another, like I said, that game early in the season, the Seahawks won pretty comfortably. They ran a lot, and it was I don't know if it was a wearing Dallas down kind of thing. I don't want to say that, but it's not like they ran all over them. Even you look at Carson, you go, ooh, 102 yards at a touchdown. Yeah, he had to work to get that. I mean, the Seahawks are going to have to work to get those yards on the ground in this game. And I think that's a really interesting facet of this game is how effective they're going to be running. And I kind of think this is looking like an under for me.
What I like about Seattle's run game is that obviously Chris Carson has been really good this year, over 1,150 yards. But they spread it around. I mean, Mike Davis has over 500 yards. Rashad Penny has over 400 yards. And obviously Russell Wilson can run the ball as well. There's just a kind of a multifaceted attack that I really – it's been kind of enjoyable to watch, especially because so many people didn't think much of Seattle this year. I mean, there are people who said they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and kind of overcome that. And you mentioned, I think, in your notes that Seattle has the fewest pass attempts in the NFL this year. But you look at Russell Wilson, and he's third in the league in quarterback rating.
Right.
He's got a 5-to-1 quarterback interception ratio, which is tied for second best in the league. They're very efficient there. And to me, it comes down to – a lot of it comes down to two matchups, quarterback versus quarterback. Would you rather have Russell Wilson on your team as a playoff team, or would you rather have Dak Prescott? I think the answer there to me is really easy. It's you go with Russell Wilson. He's got the experience. He's got that X factor that even if he's not having a great game, he's throwing for 120 yards and 2 picks, and Seattle's down, 4 late in the game. But the Seahawks got the ball with 2 minutes to go, and Russell Wilson is about ready to take over. Russell Wilson, I'm betting on Russell Wilson to win that game.
Right.
And if you're going with Jason Garrett with Dallas versus Pete Carroll with Seattle, what coach do you want on your sideline? I think the answer there is pretty obvious as well. You want Pete Carroll. So those two matchups.
Such good clappers, though. They're excellent clappers, both of them.
I mean, say this for Garrett. There was some chatter about whether or not he should be in danger of losing his job early this season, and then everybody kind of thought, well, that's not going to happen because Jerry Jones wants to keep him around for whatever reason. And he's been more aggressive. Jason Garrett has, for as conservative as he's been a little more aggressive lately, which I think people seem to enjoy, and people seem to think that's the right move, especially on offense going for those 4th downs. So there is that. I'd still rather have Pete Carroll on my team, even though Jason Garrett is a really good clapper.
Okay. Other things in this game to look for. Let's see. So Seattle, by the way, they've won 5 of their last 7. They've averaged 30 points a game in that. And that you wouldn't kind of expect that from them generally. So been interesting. They played a lot of games at home down the stretch, which I thought was kind of weird. We knew 6-7 weeks ago that they were set up for a strong finish. And they did. They had it. Even though losing that game to San Francisco, right? That was a little weird.
Yeah.
But not totally shocking, but because the Niners were pesky late. But by the way, Cowboys, one other thing, 7-2 since they got Amari Cooper. A lot of home wins, like we said. They're a different team at home. I don't know. I'm going Dallas. The home field's tipping it for me. I've been thinking for weeks that the Cowboys would be a tough out if they got a home game, and I still think that. I mean, I think they might go to New Orleans and get kind of waxed next week, but I'm going to pick them this game. So
yeah, no, I mean it's legit. I mean, like I said, that gave me pause. Just But I mean, if the game was being played in Seattle, who'd you go if it was in Seattle?
I would pick the Seahawks, definitely.
Without hesitation, right?
Without hesitation, no.
Yeah.
Right now, NFLPickwatch.com, on the expert side, 79% so far are with the Seahawks. 71% of the fans with the Seahawks.
And what's the straight up percentage?
Hold on one second. Let's see. I'm going to go to it right now. 67% experts straight up Seahawks.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't know. I wonder if we're giving Cowboys enough credit, but all right. So again, Josh, Seahawks, John, Cowboys. Chargers, Ravens, early game Sunday. The current line as of Friday morning, 2.5. 2. Baltimore by 2. Over under is 42. You talked about this before as your favorite game of the weekend. It's kind of hard to argue. I mean, I like them all, really.
Yeah.
I don't like them all.
It's a good slate.
Yeah, there's one I don't like especially. We're going to get to that next. But this game, the Week 16 game, I talked about this with Ryan the other day. So on one hand, you can look at it and say, well, it was 16-10 and the Chargers had the ball in Baltimore territory late, right? And the fumble turned it. I mean, so maybe it wasn't a 22-10 game. However, Baltimore dominated this game. They ran all over the Chargers. And it was so surprising because the Chargers had been playing so well on both sides of the ball, and then this just happened, and the Ravens kicked their ass. They just did. It was every bit of 22-10, even though the way it got there was a little weird. They crushed them. And part of you, how good are the Ravens, who have won since Lamar Jackson took over? I think they're 6 out of 7, and the only loss was a game at Kansas City where if the Ravens defense had held on fourth down conversion late in the game, they would have won at Arrowhead. I mean, this team has been really impressive over the last 2 months.
Yeah, you're right, and the fact that they did it in LA on a Saturday, with a day's less preparation, the fact they played so well against the Chargers was really impressive. I think that people still wonder about Lamar Jackson and whether he can be a guy who can bring the Baltimore back from 2 touchdowns down or 3 touchdowns. They still haven't had to be in that situation, which is kind of a testament to their defense and the fact Baltimore kind of jumps out on people a little bit. But so there's still some question marks about Lamar Jackson, whether or not that offense can, like we talk about a lot, if they're down 14-0, if they're down 21-0, can Baltimore come back? And I think that the Chargers are going to have to jump on people. Maybe we'll talk about it in a minute, but the Chargers have to go to Baltimore for a 1 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, which people have said, well, that's really tough to do for a West Coast team, and it is tough to do. But the Chargers this year on East Coast games are 3-0, and they're 2-0 when they start at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Mm-hmm. So the reason they've kind of done that is they've jumped out to big leads. They jumped out to a 21-3 lead on Buffalo in the first 20 minutes of that game. They jumped out to a 21-6 lead on Cleveland at halftime in that game, and they beat Pittsburgh. I think that was a later. It was a Sunday night game, yeah. And actually they fell behind early in that game, and they had to come back. So the difference in time, or the difference in location, has not been a huge deal this year. And the last time they won a playoff game, San Diego or LA did, was they won in Cincy in 2013, and that was a 1 p.m. game. So I wonder if that thought process, which has certainly been a narrative coming into this game, whether the Chargers can play well on the road at 1 p.m. That's the Chargers have proven that they play well. They can play well when they're in the situation.
Okay. Some injuries to catch up on real quick. Melvin Gordon probably okay. Chargers lost Jatavis Brown, their linebacker. Again, that's another one. Not a huge loss for them. Hunter Henry might play. He's been practicing. It sounds like Anthony Lynn kind of said some things yesterday, like, well, he's really going to have to show me something before the game. That's a little. If he plays it, I wouldn't expect him to be a big factor. You're still going to see more Antonio Gates at tight end. So the Ravens defense, by the way, we can't. Not that we're ignoring them. Just for statistically, second in both points allowed and yards per play against. I mean, they're just just about as good as anybody in the league. You know, them and the Bears. Ravens are 6-2 at home, but they're only 3-5 against the spread at home. The Chargers, on the other hand, they've been great on the road, 7-1 both straight up and against the spread. They've been, like you said, they had those early the East Coast games, didn't matter. They went to Pittsburgh, didn't matter. They went to Kansas City, they won. I mean, you know, there's no, at least, no matter how you look at this game, the Chargers being on the road, there's no fear there at all, right?
Yeah, and you look at their playoff history, it's not very, very extensive, but they've never lost a wild card game on the road. I think they've won 3 or 4 in their history. So again, I mean, I think the Ravens are going to win the game. I think they're going to cover the spread. I had it at Ravens -2.5, so I feel pretty good about that. But if you're looking at this narrative of LA can't play on the West Coast or on the East Coast, they've proven that, you know, that their history has proven that they can play. So I'm not sure that that's a narrative that people need to be hinging their bets on.
Yeah, and it's the narrative about the Chargers, you know, just shooting themselves in the foot. Seems like the way this season's gone. And I mean, the Baltimore game, that wasn't shooting themselves in the foot. They just lost. You know, a good team came in and beat them. It happens. But I mean, going to Pittsburgh and going to Kansas City and winning those games. I just thought, like, they won 12 out of 14, and they've been impressive in general. But that in particular, I mean, those 2 games really just I was so impressed with them at how they played. And they're like, wow, this is maybe they've finally taken that step forward that we've been waiting for.
Well, it don't need to happen in the playoffs because, you know, Phillip Rivers has only been to 1 conference championship game. He's never been to the Super Bowl before. He's, I think, one of the most underrated quarterbacks of his generation, but he hasn't gotten to that point yet where we can see his talents on the biggest stage of all. And you wonder if LA can finally do it this year, and they don't do themselves any favor by having to go on the road and not being able to be out the Chiefs in the AFC West. And, you know, the Chiefs are sitting back this week just chilling out. They got some home games coming up, and the Chargers, meanwhile, are going to have to struggle and fight on the road. So
yeah,
it's kind of an unfortunate situation for them, but because, like, they are one of the better teams in the AFC. But, you know, football can be a cruel game.
All right, so we're on opposite sides of the fence here again. You're going with the Ravens. I got to tell you that my pick of the Chargers, it's a gut. And I can't explain it any better than that. Like, I think this is a good game. I don't think there's a side of this that's obvious, as good as the Ravens have been. I mean, the Chargers, you know, like I said, they went to Kansas City and Pittsburgh. I mean, they're not going to be afraid of the Ravens, even though the Ravens kicked the crap out of them a couple of weeks ago. But, I mean, I see this game. This is a game that could go either way. And I know Rivers has had, you know, I have this vision in my head of Rivers struggling on the road against an excellent defense. I can't shake that. But I don't know. I got a gut that they're going to pull this one out, that they're going to bounce back after the way they lost to the Ravens a couple of weeks ago and pull this out and move forward. So
yeah, I mean, that's legit. I can see that, but and I'm not sure how much to take it to factor in that Baltimore played so well against them 2 weeks ago. You know, I'm loath to make my prediction based on that game, but you know, there are certainly some trends and some storylines you can look at and say, oh well, you know, they can continue what they did 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I just think the way Baltimore's playing lately and the way we talked about earlier, the way that these teams peak at the end of the year really matters a lot in the playoffs, I think.
Yep. All right. So last question on this game. We talked a bunch about Lamar Jackson. Do you trust him? Do you trust him? He's been playing really well, and not just running. He's been throwing better than people want to give him credit for, I think. And maybe that's just a perception I have, but he's like, oh, he just runs him. You know, yeah, the throwing's been okay. He's actually been pretty solid. Do you trust him? In playoff game against a good, I mean, it's tight. This is a different environment for him.
Well, it's a home game, so that helps, I think.
Yep.
I don't trust him if the Baltimore falls behind by 3 touchdowns like we talked about. But
Right.
I mean, how can you trust him then? Or I don't know if trust is the right word, but it's so unknown. You know, you can't make a definitive statement about, well, he can lead this team from behind because he hasn't really had to do it yet. So I don't know. I mean, I trust him if the Ravens are ahead.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's kind of a nip and tuck game. Yeah, I trust him then, but there are a lot of questions still about him that maybe he's gonna have to answer this in the playoffs this year. So I don't know if the Chargers, like I said, and we talked about before, Chargers are going to have to jump on them early to kind of get those cobwebs out for that early game for them.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't know.
One thing I love about that is what helps Jackson is that you think about a rookie quarterback in a playoff game and you think, well, what's he going to do when not just if he's down by, 2 touchdowns, let's say, but what's he going to do on 3rd and 8, and when he has to convert and he has to throw. But the Ravens don't do has to throw on 3rd. Like 3rd and 10, they're like, all right, let's run. They just run all the time. But it doesn't matter. Down distance doesn't matter. So that probably helps him and takes him out of situations where he could potentially make mistakes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Josh is going Ravens. I'm going Chargers. Right now on NFLPickwatch.com, 56% of the experts like the Chargers. 51% of the fans like the Ravens. That's surprising me. I figured more people would be on Baltimore in this one.
More people do. I'm sorry. More people do what?
On the Ravens. But it's early. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Chargers are one of the best teams in the league this year. So it's.
Yeah.
And Baltimore, for the most part, hasn't. So.
Okay. Eagles, Bears.
Not a game you're looking forward to, I guess, huh?
No, I'm not. I'll tell you why in a second. So Bears by 6, over under 41. This is the only game of the weekend that's not a rematch of a game that was played earlier in the season. Injury-wise, Michael Bennett didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday for the Eagles. We're going to need to watch him. Bears, Eddie Jackson was hurt last week. He missed Sunday's game. I think he's got an ankle injury, but he's ready to play. So the Bears defense probably needs that. So Philly's won 5 out of 6, including 3 with Nick Foles. And they were close to dead. People writing them off. The Vikings helped them out by just being a complete disappointment. I'm still angry about that. That's one of my Super Bowl picks, so I'm still angry about the Vikings. The Bears, on the other hand, have won 9 out of their last 10. The only game they lost was overtime at the Giants with Chase Daniel quarterbacking. The Bears have been 7-1 at home, both straight up and against the spread. The only game they lost was that game against the Patriots. The Bears defense, I mean, I'll just list them up. First in points against, first in yards per play against. They were terrific. They were just really they're a defense dominant team, but their offense, Trubisky, they're just kind of okay, right?
Yeah.
How okay? How much? Here's the trust thing again, and trust is a relative word, sure. You trust Trubisky not to screw this up at home? They try not to let him. They try to take the ball out of his hands as much as they can.
I don't know if I trust Trubisky. I trust the Bears defense.
Yeah.
And, that has obviously been helpful to Trubisky this year. The fact he can kind of lean on them indirectly. I guess you asked me if I trust Lamar Jackson, and I do to a certain extent. I trust him more than I trust Trubisky.
Okay.
I don't. If I'm the Bears, I don't want to get into a shootout. But the way the Bears defense plays, they don't have to usually worry about that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think I don't know. Then you look at Super Bowl winning teams, and you basically, for the most part, need an elite quarterback. I mean, there are some exceptions to that rule, and obviously last year we can talk about whether or not Nick Foles is an elite quarterback. I think I'm not sure anybody would say that he's an elite quarterback. But you need a quarterback who gets hot. I mean, Joe Flacco won Super Bowl by playing some of the most amazing football ever in that 3 or 4 game stretch a few years ago. Nick Foles was hot last year.
Yeah.
Can Trubisky get hot like that? I'm not sure. And if he can't get hot, I have a hard time believing the Bears will go far into the playoffs. So I guess from that aspect, do I trust Trubisky? Not really.
So yeah, me neither. When I talked to Ryan on the other day about this, the thing about Trubisky is I can't say I trust him throwing the ball. I love when he runs the ball, and I think that when quarterbacks are good runners, people kind of look at it. I've said this about Cam Newton before. People kind of look at it as this cherry on top of the cake or the icing on the cake, and I look at it and I go, "This is like a big part of the cake." It's not just, oh, it's so cute that he runs. Trubisky's a really good runner, and it matters. It helps. I mean, the last few weeks he hasn't run a ton, but yeah, that's a huge factor because he can just on plays that break down, he can extend drives.
Yeah,
it's a huge deal.
Yeah, and obviously that we see that as a more of a trend. I mean, starting with, Kaepernick and Russell Wilson, and now you see it from a lot of teams that have these quarterbacks who can run. I mean, we're just talking about Lamar Jackson. You're looking at even Josh Allen in Buffalo has that ability. It's certainly become more of the trend where you have these quarterbacks that can do other things other than just pass. Now, whether or not that affects their greatness as a quarterback, I guess is up to question. The three guys I mentioned, I don't think anybody's looking at those guys and saying, "Well, that's a great quarterback," but it is helpful at times. And you're right, Trubisky is fun to watch when he runs. It's his kind of escapability from the pocket is impressive. And do you trust Trubisky throwing the ball in the situation, or do you trust him to be a pocket passer? No, but I mean, I think if you're going to say yes to that question, I know neither of us said yes, but if you're going to say yes to that question, it's because he has that escapability and he can run the ball. So in that aspect, you'd rather have him run the ball in a tough situation than throwing it. Maybe you trust him a little bit more, I guess.
All right. On the other side of this one, Philly doesn't run. I mean, they don't run well. They've had running back injuries. They've had offensive line injuries. They just haven't run the ball well all year. Okay. The Bears stopped the run. Philly's going to have to win through the air. And this is another thing I said earlier in the week. Nick Foles, it makes me look stupid generally. Like I look and I go, come on, he's not that good. Last year in the Super Bowl, the Patriots are going to figure this guy out. Come on. It's Nick Foles. He's just okay. And he's probably better than I thought, but he's not that good. I mean, basically, you're talking about going into Soldier Field against probably the best defense in the league and putting this game on his shoulders. I don't know. I don't think he could. We've seen it before. He's been, an excellent quarterback in big spots last year. I mean, he led the team to the Super Bowl. And two of those three games, they lit it up on the scoreboard. But I think this is a big ask out of Nick Foles to go beat the Bears with a team, like I said, with a team that basically can't run.
There seems to be a little bit of magic that surrounds Nick Foles. I'm not sure what it is. And he's had stretches during his career where, he's been really, really good, even though he is kind of the consummate backup. I mean, when was it 2013 in Philly? He went through that ridiculous streak where he didn't throw an interception. It was like 17 touchdowns and no interceptions, something weird like that. So I mean,
he was 27-2 for the season.
Yeah. And he led the league in quarterback rating that year, and he went 8-2 as a starter in 2013. So it's not he's not just a flash in the pan from last year. I mean, you look at his record for the rest of his career, it's not that great, but he has shown that ability. I don't know. It just seems like there's some kind of magic around him when he's a starter late in the season, and you can't explain it. It's like Tim Tebow in a way. Remember Tim Tebow every week would be awful all game long, and then do some ridiculous thing at the end of the game. The Broncos would win the game. I think Foles is a better quarterback than Tebow, but there is some kind of magic surrounding these guys. It's really interesting. It's really fun to watch. So it's hard for me to – I got picking the Bears straight up, but I'm giving the Eagles a point just because I think Foles will make it close.
I don't believe in the Eagles. I don't believe in the way they played down the end of the season, and I think the Bears are gonna work them over. I think 24-7 kind of thing. I really do. And Nick Foles, I'm open to Nick Foles proving me wrong because it's happened.
It's happened every week, right? Have you picked the Eagles yet with Foles at quarterback this year?
I don't know. I can check that now, though. Hold on. Let me see what we got here.
You can do that on Pickwatch now. You can actually look individual riders.
Yes.
How they picked this year.
We're going to do that right now. And we're going to see what my success rate has been with the Eagles. So let's see. Top teams. Bottom team. I got to go week by week, right? Let's go week by week here.
Great radio.
All right, it is. No, this is an interesting one though. I picked. Let's see. Did I pick the Eagles this past week? Who'd they play last Sunday? The Redskins. I picked the Redskins. Right? Yeah.
That was not a good pick.
No, that was not a good pick. The week before. How about this? You tell me who the Eagles played in a week going backwards, and I'll tell you who I picked.
All right, let me get there.
Hold on. I can get this. Okay, so right now, so week 16, I picked against them. They played Houston in week 16, and I picked the Texans. No, I picked the Eagles. There you go. I picked Nick Foles in week 16, so we don't have to go far.
Okay.
See?
I imagine you didn't pick the Eagles against the Rams in week 15, but
I did not.
But I mean, that you can be forgiven for that.
Yeah, I nobody. That was such a shocker, and that was a great game. There's another one, Nick Foles. Like, what the heck is Nick Foles doing? Going to LA and tearing apart the Rams. Yeah, I don't know.
The defense he's played against, and we talked about the Texans' past defense has not been good, and he lit them up. The Rams aren't known for their great defense, and the Redskins aren't known for their great defense. So he's done it against defenses that are not great against the pass. This week will be different, so that's something to consider as well.
You know, he's got four interceptions and 5 starts, by the way.
He's terrible, man.
just point it out.
No, I know. No, you're right, but I think was he throwing 6 touchdowns? I think it's like 6-3 the last couple of games.
It's 6-3 the last 2 games. Yes.
Yeah. So not great, but not terrible. He's throwing for a lot of yards, that's for sure.
The game at the Rams was great. The game at Washington was good. Early in the season, he played. Remember, he started the first 2 games, and the first game against Atlanta was a low-scoring game. He threw for 117 yards and a pick. And then they played the Bucs, who were terrible. So I don't know. I'm not a believer. I like the Bears at home. I think the Bears are a really good team, and I think the Bears are the type of team that could go to the Super Bowl. Like I said, I don't trust Trubisky, but that defense is really strong. And as long as they keep Trubisky in situations where, you know, the game's not on his shoulders, I think they'll be okay. I'm curious. If them going to play the Rams next week, if they win, that's a fascinating matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. So right now, so you're going Eagles to cover. The Bears straight up. I'm going Bears to win and cover. Right now on NFLPickwatch.com, we're going to go against the spread. Expert against the spread. So fans against the spread, 54% Eagles. And experts against the spread are 64% Eagles. So I'll be hanging out with the Bears and a few other people on one side. See how it goes. So Josh and I disagreed the trends here, the way the season's been going, Josh basically made up huge ground and passed me late in the season. He was really strong late in the season. So if you trust that this is going to continue, stick with Josh and not me, because we disagree on every game.
Picking at the right time, like good playoff teams do, is what I've been doing.
That's right. So again,
straight up. Let me just say this straight up. The expert. I'm not looking at the fans, but straight up, the experts, 85% for the Bears. So
interesting thing here against the spread. The majority of the experts are with the road team in every game.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's almost the same way. The only difference is Baltimore is a 51-49 with the fans. So the fans with the spread, the fans like the road teams in 3 out of 4. And basically Baltimore, LA is a toss-up. So
and it's not particularly close. I mean, none of these games. It's people are resoundingly in the road team's corners.
The Saturday games, especially. Yeah. So that's interesting. All right, folks. Again, Saturday I will be on Facebook Live at 3:30. Sunday I'll be on Facebook Live at noon, just catching you up on the latest picks, the latest line movements, all that stuff. If you have any questions over the weekend, Josh is on Twitter. He is at Josh Katzowitz. I'm at jhalpin37, and our main account is at Pickwatch. As I always say, this discussion we had, we're going to chop up the individual game discussions and put them on our YouTube channel. So if you just want to, watch 10 minutes on Colts Texans, you can. So we'll have that done later on Friday. So please check it out. Otherwise, Josh, good luck this weekend.
We still went about 50 minutes on 4 games, John.
I know. We had a lot to talk about. It's good stuff.
No, it's good. I mean, I expected about half an hour would be done.
Yeah.
And we're giving the fans their money's worth, man. Even off 4 games, we can BS our way through it, right?
We are. All right, everybody, again, Watch on YouTube if you're not already. If you're watching this on YouTube, like our Facebook channel when the shows go live. Again, I'll be here over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday pregame, so please check it out. That's it. Good luck with your picks. If you haven't made your picks, make them now. NFLPickwatch.com. For Josh Katzowitz, I'm John Halpin. Thank you for watching Pickwatch Live.